What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the One Deeper podcast. This week is another installation of a industry series. Well, it's been a while since I've done this, but anyway, the aim of this series essentially is to talk to people who are doing AI, data science stuff out in industry, building things, making people's lives better. I don't mean to imply that my academic colleagues are not making people's lives better. I'm just saying, people out there building stuff. Anyway, so Achalanka is the founder, co-founder of Sach Analytics, and he's been in the healthcare optimization, like hospitals optimization space for a long time, and he's a big part of the reason why I got involved in AI and started studying this space. So, in this conversation, we talk about the challenges and the opportunities in the healthcare space, in helping hospitals be better using their data and AI and all sorts of other stuff. So please enjoy this conversation with Achalanka Dalawella.
Sounds good.
Yo, man, yeah, it's been a while. When was the last time we spoke? It must be at least like several years at least.
It's been, I think, about 2 years, right? It's crazy.
Dude, way more than that. Way more than that. Like
Oh,
definitely more than that. Because like it's been at least 3 years. Because I know I've been here for at least 3 years. But it's good to
that's
see
right.
you,
You
man.
said the program 3 years.
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah,
Are you still in Norway?
yeah. Netherlands.
Netherlands. Okay.
Yeah. But close enough. Man, anyway, I want to talk to you about so many things I want to talk to you about. But like, first of all, um, like you're big, like you should know you're a big part of the reason I'm here right now. So I mean, like that's what I told you over my message on LinkedIn. But like honestly, like do you remember the first time we met
I do.
at Advantis?
Yes. I'm very proud of how much you've done, man. That's crazy.
Thanks, man.
Just from that little bit of interaction, you've kind of changed your entire trajectory. It's amazing.
You have no idea how many times I mention this story. I tell this story to people. I must tell this story to people at least once every 2 weeks or at least once a week, like because people keep asking me like, man, how did you end up here, and like
Yeah.
I have to tell the story. I have to
Right.
tell the story about how I met you, and you wanted to buy and you wanted to get something done from the company I was working at, and then you were doing all this data science stuff, and I was like, okay, let me go hang out with these guys and see what they're up to, and sort of send me on this whole other trajectory that I'm really happy
Yeah.
about right now.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm so proud of you, man.
Thanks,
Seriously.
bro. Now I'm curious as to what you've been up to. So okay, so what's been going on? Like even give me a too long didn't read of this of what you've been up to.
I think, oh my God. Sorry, Dish. Um, so I think where we left off last, we were in Sri Lanka, and we're trying to figure out um, how to kick off the predictive analytics space within Sri Lanka. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the
yeah.
learning that came from that was I think it was a bit too early
Mm,
for Sri Lanka. I think the baseline foundation infrastructure needed for more advanced analytics was just beginning to come up.
right.
And I mean, we were working with some of the bigger companies there, but even still, those companies didn't have the um, very good source data for us to work with, and they
Yeah.
were more on the path of let me look at retrospective and real time data as much as possible to make decisions. So we ended up working with that, but
I
we
mean,
were
like,
to,
dude, man, I remember like I went to a meeting with you guys at what was the hospital? I think it was at it was somewhere near Katnaika, but like not Katnaika, but like close by to Paligoda.
Him's
Um,
hospitals.
Hemas. I went to Hemas, right? And looking back now, like so I've been around like companies here, right?
Right,
And like data science like consultants here, and
right.
the kind of mindset and like the preparation they have already to take advantage of a lot of the AI data science stuff is like it's unbelievable. Like it's actually quite impressive how they are ready to
Mm,
just like straight up like just plug in like a large language model. Like it's all the stuff is already like well maintained, curated, clean. It's pretty impressive.
that's
As
amazing.
as opposed to like when you're back home, it was a bit hectic.
Yes, it was tough. And I think ultimately what we realized was like it wasn't good for us to stay within that market. So we stopped, working within the
Yeah.
Sri
Wait,
Lankan market.
let's take a step back. So why did you how did you co- end up in this healthcare AI space anyway? Like I feel like I never really asked you about this. I just sort of like assumed. I just sort of just like went along with. I was like, yeah, he's definitely into this. But like how you have a background in working in hospitals to begin with, right? That was where you started.
Yeah, I think we first started off with the BI, the idea of just business intelligence,
Yeah, yeah,
and how do you provide that in a meaningful way to hospital, to healthcare in general. And
yeah,
we've extrapolated like expanded healthcare definition to include pharmaceuticals
yeah.
as well as hospitals. So we know that there was a lot of data out there, but it wasn't told in a way that um, it wasn't curated in a way that tells a story, and especially not one that matches the decision making process of each role within the organization. So that's the first opportunity that we saw. Um, so that's why we started in Sri Lanka because I knew, having done a bit of consulting work there at that time, that they were not using analytics in a way that is meaningful.
Right.
So we got into that space, through that insight. I think, how can we make it more efficient um, by taking, you know, utilizing the data they already had, but
Hmm.
doing doing it in a way that makes more um, more sense to each role. But from there, I think the opportunity that I saw was there's a great resource within Sri Lanka, which is that the technical capability of the people, the right people, are is amazing.
Right.
I mean, up to like world class standards. Certain people, right, very specific people, and I think the opportunity wasn't there to really extract that potential specifically at that time. So I wanted to be able to say that I've worked on this thing called AI, right,
Hmm.
and at least been part of the journey, taking advantage of the resources that are there within Sri Lanka. Um, so that happened. We started with some
Did
applications
you?
and so forth.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah,
just thought. Did you talk to or like approach businesses outside of the medical domain, or did you just stick to mostly the medical people?
we actually looked at healthcare and finance at that time,
Okay.
and even then, predictive analytics and AI was not talked about.
Yeah, because I remember when I was at Midas, right? Work, so they were so I was at I'm not sure if you know Midas, but like they were a big manufacturing. They're a big manufacturing company. They make safety equipment like hard hats, gloves, like industrial safety gear that people use in factories all over the world.
Right,
And we were like, so I was on the IT team, and there was a lot of work being done with SAP. So it's like SAP was coming in and like helping to build all these like more structured ways of maintaining your data, like doing all this like not still nothing really like predictive,
right,
still just trying to help the executives get a better view. Like you said, business just straight up business intelligence stuff, right? Try
right,
to get a better view of like what the hell is actually going on in this company, and trying to put all like the right points of data collection and the right points of access so that everyone has any idea of
right.
what's happening. But yeah, I was just curious if you had looked at any other place. But yeah,
Yeah, we did, and I think I would say it was very similar across the board. That people were starting to hear this word called AI, but not really applying it, and
yeah,
definitely didn't have the data sources ready in a structured way
yeah,
to
yeah,
really take advantage of it. So,
yeah.
um, so yeah, but I mean, there were certain people, that were there, who really surprised me, and that's when I learned the technical capability of Sri Lanka for certain people. And I wanted to kind of utilize that to build something of my own within the space. So we dug into the this area. We wanted to apply for the clients we were working at the moment, and we applied it for like forecasting. Right? So it was a very basic model that we've created, be able to predict what the future demand would be for
Mm.
supply chain purposes. And the second application was for a law firm actually within the UK.
Yeah.
Um, how to take advantage of, you know, uh, I want to say NLP, but it's not really NLP at
Man, like
this point.
dude, like this GPT revolution for law firms and anything like that is crazy. Like, because before before we had transformers,
Mm,
like we couldn't put two coconuts together, bro. It's pretty hard. Like to make a
yes,
reasonable sentence. I mean, we had like reasonable translation models, but like they were nowhere near as good enough to be like, yo, let's just feed this whole thing our entire case history and our entire like all of our petitions and all of our contracts, and like let's just give
right.
this thing everything. And now we're at a place where that's actually very feasible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing how quickly it happened too, that
Yeah,
transition,
yeah,
relatively considering.
yeah, yeah.
So, and as we played around with that, and then we realized, we really do need to focus. I think at that point is when we started talking with you as well. How do we focus more? How do we become really specific into a specific field?
Hmm.
So that's why we chose healthcare, and we've chosen to try to go into the US and UK market.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice.
So that's where
Yeah.
we've been
So
since.
like, so I'm really curious because I'm very curious about so I don't know about you, like, so I don't know if you know about the trajectory. Basically, I went from what is data science
Yeah,
like 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, and
right.
like what is this? Because I had like an engineering background, so I had some engineering
Yes.
knowledge, but I didn't have like a heavy statistics, heavy just like probability theory, machine learning, AI stuff. I had no idea. I really had no idea. I remember like 4 years or so ago asking one of my friends, he was an engineer, and I was like, maybe like 5 years ago. And I was like, "Hey man, what do you think?" This seems like a ridiculous question to ask now, but
Mm,
like 5 6 years ago, I asked him like, "Hey man, what do you think of machine learning?" Right?
mm.
And he was like, it's interesting, right?" And
Wow.
I was like, okay. And then, but then like I had this feeling like, oh man, this seems pretty interesting. So I went from there, like from that level to like today. Like I spent the past 4.5 hours trying to build this very simple reinforcement learning agent, right? Just like trying to solve this game with purely with learning, with like no real like hard coded stuff. But like,
Amazing.
so to doing that to like my thesis and like all this other stuff. So like I
Right.
have this I've been soaking in, like marinating
Yeah.
in AI machine learning stuff, and like part of it has really helped to sort of like, there's a lot of hype right now,
Mm,
right? There's a lot of hype, and there are a lot of people. What I realized is that there are a lot of people who are like basically riding the hype wave and just
mm.
like telling people they'll do stuff that I'm like, dude, that's not how. What are you talking about? Right?
Interesting.
That's not gonna work. And then also I'm like, people who are saying, yo, let's just, yeah, they'll just like sort of use like all the nice words, like neural networks, like
Mm,
backdrop, all these like fancy words
right.
to say, yeah, and then charge these people like what's the word I'm looking for,
So, yeah.
exorbitant like prices and stuff, when you could just literally solve this with the linear regression, like that's technically machine learning, but
Mm,
like so yeah, like I've come to this point where I can sort of like see it, be like, oh yeah, that makes sense, or like that doesn't make any sense at all.
right.
But like as far as the cutting edge goes, like who knows, man? Like some of the like, smartest people in the world are working on this stuff. So, but still, interesting times.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I think it's we don't know yet what will happen. I think that's a very big thing. You don't
yeah,
really know the trajectory of where all this will lead to.
yeah,
A lot of applications,
yeah,
but even within the applications, you run into certain things like really operationalizing it.
yeah,
And that, that's where I'm focusing on at the moment, to say, how do you really make a prediction
Yeah.
useful enough to drive a business decision or a business outcome?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
So like, I mean, and it's really, do you, how do you find, like, so when you go speak to like potential businesses and like clients, right? Um, how do you like, what's the distribution in the sense that like the variation in how much statistical and sort of like mathematical knowledge people have? Like, do you have to sort of like walk them into, like, how, like, what's your, like, what's your thinking when you go to like talk to somebody? It's like, how does this, like, how do you gauge at what level you should be talking to this person at? Like, okay, you should be talking to him at, like, like probability theory level, or like, is it just like, okay, just like, hey, this is how it's going to work and here's what we need from you? And
I think it's very basic, to be honest. I think a lot of the businesses are not technically competent in terms of the background, or like what machine learning really is or what it's made up of. They just know that it could do very certain, certain applications they've heard of in the past, especially with ChatGPT. Now they've heard of that in a big way, but they don't know what's behind it. So for me, when we pitch something, it's really about understanding the problem that they're trying to play with or try to solve, and see if you know this could be applied in a way that would be value added.
mm,
And sometimes you find, you really don't need machine learning or predictive analytics to solve a problem. And other times you say, if it was added, it could add a very big benefit.
right,
Optimization comes to mind, in a big way.
right,
Um, and you're able to give them something that they weren't able to do before. So what do I mean by that? So let's say you're taking a look at an operating theater schedule, and the goal of an operating theater is always to maximize utilization of that space.
right,
So every minute of the operating theater there's a cost amount, and the more you utilize it, obviously the more revenue the hospital or the center is going to get. But there's so many different factors at play. When you allocate time for the surgeons, how many surgeons want that space, that's a particular spot.
right.
Will they use all of it? Will they use a part of it? What type of procedure? So there's like so many different factors at play where it's very difficult for a human being to kind of calculate all those different
Yo,
things.
so just
And
wanted to point something out real quick. So like,
yeah,
what's interesting is like, so 4 or 5 years ago, we had this very similar conversation, and you explained to me what it is that you
mm,
want to do, right?
mm,
Difference now is when you're explaining to me, like in my head, I'm already like I'm like cycling through different approaches that might work, right? So
that's
I'm
great.
like thinking, I'm thinking, okay, well, we could do some like linear functional approximation, maybe like some like RNNs, like I don't know, like all these like different things. Like that's cool. This is like a very
What
nice
a
book.
what a growth, right? That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, for real. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. I just thought you might be.
No, that's amazing to hear.
Yeah,
But yeah, so I think there's certain applications that are very powerful,
right.
and where you can extract 15-20% improvement over the baseline in terms of performance, and that 15-20% equates to millions of dollars
Right, right.
for an organization. So um, so when I speak to them, it's more about just solving the problem. What is the problem, and what is the ideal solution that they want to have in terms of business applications. So
Generally like, are they already aware of the problem, or like, are you sort of like walking in there saying, look, here's a problem that you don't even know that you have? Like,
I think
what's the,
there's a lot of refining that has to be done.
yeah,
It might be the problem statement might not be formed yet in a specific manner, and a lot of times also, you know, I expect them to know the root causes behind it, and you find out that they have no idea what the root causes are. So for us, we deal mostly with patient flow and capacity.
hmm,
And when you talk about a hospital, what causes wait time to happen, or like backlog to happen, you'd expect them to know very well what those root drivers are. But these guys don't, because they haven't tried to solve the whole system level problem of eliminating backlog completely. So I find that you do have to educate them a little bit and let them know
Right.
what other hospitals have done, and then specifically visualize and show how predictive analytics can influence that
Right.
in a big way.
So, like one, so I mean, obviously, process level optimization has,
Mm,
I would say, f- far preceded any AI based stuff, right? Like, I mean, like, okay, so
mm,
first, like, it's hard to actually define what the hell people mean when they say AI, but like, let's say, generally speaking, like neural networks and machine learning. Okay, let's just say machine learning generally, but we've been doing like mathematical optimization for a long, long time. Like like figuring out schedules, like the best route to take for to send a postman, to to maximize these things. We've been doing a lot of like a lot of that has been like handled in optimization theory and all this stuff.
right.
But the difference now of what you're trying to do now is we're trying to say, okay, look, there are all these different methodologies and different ways of optimizing these things.
Yeah.
What if instead of build, so those are like those are like preconceived, let's say, notions or preconceived pre-built theories that we have developed as human beings, right? And we bring them to bear.
Yeah.
So now the machine learning sort of revolution, in the sense that, is that, okay, can we, like, without bringing any a priori knowledge into the situation, can we just derive a function or some
Uh,
behavior from
right.
just the data itself, like without
Right.
actually without bringing in anything else? Like, for example, like the best example is, for example, like, so in OpenAI, I don't know how many linguists work at OpenAI. Probably no, probably no linguists work at OpenAI,
Mm,
right? Because that's because we've had linguistic theories of how language gets produced and how humans produce sensible language for hundreds of years. We had all kinds of theories, right?
right. Right. Right.
But none of them were remotely good enough to produce good, reasonable conversations and sentences to over and over again,
Right. Right.
right? And all of a sudden, this bunch of linear algebra nerds showed up, and they're like, "Hey, let's just multiply a bunch of matrices together with the. I mean, I'm oversimplifying drastically, right? There's been a very long progression of AI research and thinking that come here, but like, essentially, you're like, okay, let's just learn it from the data. Let's forget what things we know, forget what we care about. Like, if you look at the architecture of a transformer,
Mm,
right? There's nothing in there that says, like, at least nothing in there that we've developed or programmed into it that says, here's a verb, here's an adverb,
right.
here's a noun. None of that exists in there.
Right.
I mean, it might exist in the terms of, in the sense that of the weights that are learned in the neural network. It might, we have no idea, but we didn't put anything in there, right?
Explicit to tell it. Yeah.
Exactly. So I feel like this is the same thing that's sort of happening in the space you're working on, where it's like, okay, let's we've had this we have this entire history of optimization theory and mathematics that has been worked really well, but
Mm,
now let's see if we can make even better predictions with just straight raw taking stuff from the data, which is pretty
right.
interesting, I think.
Yeah, and I think certain applications it'll do really well, and certain things it might not. But yes, I agree. I
Yeah.
think that is the world of possibility at the moment, definitely.
Yeah, like,
And the
sorry,
good thing
go
about
ahead. Yeah.
healthcare is like there's just so much data,
Yeah.
like so because by law they have to keep all this data,
Right, right, right,
and there's a timestamp on everything. Like there's so much raw information available that
right.
it's waiting to be used. And of course, there's a lot of privacy and issues that you have to kind of work
Yeah, this is a
through.
very,
But
very tricky space to work in. Like, in terms
yeah,
of like, actually, like, if you're just like working from data on the internet, like, it's actually it's probably little simpler than what you're working on, because like you have to deal with all this privacy and security and stuff.
yeah, getting through clearance for some of this stuff is difficult. Um, so we have to put in place infrastructure, uh, designs and certifications to show and to get across that, I guess, in a
Right,
big way.
right.
Um, but
So
yeah.
yeah, like, for, like, I know there's this big, so one of the biggest criticisms. So, okay, I don't know if I agree with this criticism, but one
Mm,
of the biggest criticisms is of like neural networks and modern AI, very very big data heavy AI things, is that we really have no idea how it's making the decisions, right?
Right.
So when it's coming to make, let's say, I mean, the example that's used most often, which I think is like beaten to death, but is the loan prediction thing, right? Okay,
Yes.
like, okay, but no one really does this. I don't think anybody really, like, no bank really, like, anyway, but doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just use the example, right? The prediction is that, okay, we're going to predict whether this person should get a loan or not based purely on the data, whatever. And so one of the things is, even if you take out, let's say, demographic data, where they live, it turns out the algorithms are still able to extract these informations from just other information, because they're all
Yes.
correlated, because they're all correlated, right? For
Right.
example, where we to, if even if you take out the zip code of where you live, right?
Right.
But you have information about where you went to school, and if you paid in-state tuition or out-of-state tuition,
Right.
and, like, which school your brother went to, like, it just eventually you build a deep enough model. It's like, okay, enough, like I got it. Right?
Right. Right.
So I'm curious, like, it must be pretty tricky, just similarly in the medical domain, to get, like, anonymized ish data, which can still be sort of
Used.
molded into, like, not making it anonymous at all.
Yeah. I think.
I see you rubbing your head about this problem.
No. 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 It's so let's say we're working on a clinical application, right? So we were trying to predict length of stay
Yeah.
for a patient. In order to predict length of stay, there's so many clinical indicators you have to pull in for that patient's current stay and previous stays. So things like the most recent blood work absolutely matters, right? What was
Right.
today versus yesterday versus the day before yesterday? What
Right.
does that trajectory look like? So you do need to get really patient specific, but the difference is we don't need any patient identifiable features
Mm.
either. So we don't need to know the patient's name or any of that. There's a number, right? Which again, when it gets sent to us, is generated as an anonymous number. So it's not even the real MRN number. And then the other fields are just static fields,
Right.
related to their labs, their who is their doctor, things like that.
Right.
And so that's how we've been kind of able to move past that a little bit. And the other thing is we're not taking any data um, outside their environment. So
Mhm.
we try to stay within the hospital's environment, so it's not that it's going to the cloud or anything. I
Right.
think within Europe there's a big push to not, but at least what I found is in the UK is that they prefer to be inside their own local environment versus things going to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
cloud or things like
Yeah.
that. So that's how we've been able to manage little by little across this problem.
Yeah. Like, do you find, like, I'm curious, like, imagine someone running a hospital, right?
Mm,
And then you have to solve, like, problems like this. Like, this is like stuff you're like, you were not prepared. Like, I feel like you're not prepared for this kind of problems. Like, okay, like, what, as
right.
a hospital administrator, like, dude, this is not the kind of issues that I thought I was had to deal with. It's not an enviable position, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean they're getting roles into it, right? So let's say that our main stakeholder or champion is a chief operating officer, right?
Yeah.
Most cases that's who we're working with, and they might have their a separate department just for privacy and governance and things like that. Those guys are the ones that are asked us questions.
Right. Right.
So it's a specialty person within a specific domain that's going through. So in that case, I mean, they're more ready to ask the right
Right.
relevant questions more than
Dude,
anything.
I would be so, like, man, I would be so annoyed. Like, if if I had to explain this to, like, like a random, like a like, I don't know, like a because imagine like, if you're working as a privacy whatever person, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's your if that's your number one, if that's your lens through looking at this problem, right?
Yes. Oh.
Right? And all you're thinking is, why do you need this information? Clearly, it doesn't matter. I'm like,
Right.
dude, you have no idea how important this thing is for my model to do what it needs to do.
Yeah. And sometimes we hear, what? Instead of giving you the patient level data, how about we summarize the data
Oh
and
my
give it
god,
to
it's ridiculous.
So we have to explain to them, we can't. That's not how this works, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we
yeah.
do need the transaction level data and
It's
things
like
like that.
saying here, instead of giving you 100 million samples, I'll give you one average sample. I'm like,
Yes.
Jesus Christ. It's, that makes no sense, man.
So you do have to. We have gone to these conversations. We have to kind of explain why and how, and
Yeah,
it's part
yeah,
of the
yeah,
process. But
yeah.
I think, yeah. So that part is a struggle. I have to say, it is something that we constantly kind of hit, and I think we're going to probably continue to get hit in the next couple of years. Um,
I think you're gonna be like I heard this. I can't remember who said this, but like I think it was. So I've been listening to this podcast where it's just like this guy. Every episode is a biography that is a biography that he read, and he
right.
just like talks about a biography. Like, I think so. Like one, I think it was like James Cameron who was like, I like there's like instead of trying to compete with people, just like find the hardest thing you can do and just do that because no one else is gonna do that, right? I feel like that's what you're doing is like for most people like are gonna be like like there are like I feel like there are some like very like low hanging fruit in terms of in terms of this, and I admire the fact that you're with going after this thing because like it seems like a like not only do you have to like go through the technological hurdle, the hurdle of building the
Technical problem.
technology, but
Yeah.
you also have to get past other human problems that you have to like deal with.
Oh my God, it is. I mean, you hit it right on the spot. I think the biggest issue is operationalizing this stuff, right?
Right,
I mean, we could build something so driven at the root cause and it's what you need. But if that other person doesn't know what to do with it,
yeah,
or they don't lead the change into the organization to say, hey, I'm your manager and I want you to try to use this tool. I want you to use this tool. I'm going to give you the training to use this tool. If they don't do that push and constantly do this feedback loop with their employees, it's not going to move. And then at the end of the day, they're going to say, you know what? It didn't work very well. It's not because the solution didn't work. It's because implementation wasn't good. Right.
right, right, right,
So we found that okay, if we when we do any type of project, we have to do all the process level design with them. We can't
right,
expect them to know how to do it, and
yeah,
that was a big learning.
yeah,
Especially us being within like it's not so much a plug and play, right? It's more of it's a you have a service, you have processes, you have people, so you're connecting this model or prediction or whatever it is into a real world where they have to a series of steps have to happen, and if those steps don't happen in the right way or the right person or whatever, then you're not taking advantage of what's been built to solve the problem. So
right,
you have to manage that whole stream. It's not just the technical problem. And I think that's also why within our space there's very, I would say, not as many um, people, at least in patient flow and things like that, that are using AI to manage the whole flow. There's usually very specific spots within
hmm
the patient's journey that they're targeting, but not the entire journey. You're trying to, reduce wait time or reduce a length of stay and things like that because it involves so many different stakeholders and processes across organization.
right, right, right.
So if you were to ask me what's been the hard part, I'd say it's not about the machine learning part at all. it's
It's the
it's been
people.
everything else
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
to make use of it. And
yeah.
I don't know if that's specific to our industry or not, but
No, I think in general, like in general, if you like, uh, I think it's interesting, right? Like for example, if you go if you to ask people like okay, if you go back, I think this might have been the same situation with like computers, right? Like so if you go
mm,
back, I don't know, several hundred years or whatever. I don't, my time scales are completely off. I have no idea. I have no idea when this happened. Okay, but imagine when
computers,
computers,
yeah,
when like personal computers became a thing. It's not 100 years ago, man.
yeah,
Jesus Christ. Anyway, but when personal computers became a thing, or like for work or whatever, right? I imagine like people had to be sort of like shown the way like hey like you can use a computer to do this thing and it
yeah,
works, right? And it's really helpful, it makes your
right,
life much easier.
right,
And now it's like every business, no matter what you're doing, you have a computer. Like
yeah,
you have a computer in your office, you have a computer with your team, whatever. Like everyone has a computer. It's not
right,
even like it's not like you don't have to tell them anything about it. It's like You go to office, you expect go anywhere. Where do you go to work now? And you
Right.
go, and then unless you're like doing some, I have no idea. You're
Right.
expected to use a computer, right? I feel like eventually it's gonna be like that for tools like what you're doing, in terms of once people get more familiar with what can be done with just raw information, they are more they might be more willing to be like, here, you take what we have and turn it into something useful.
Yeah. I think we're earlier in the journey. Also, I think people are still learning the applications, what it can do. So
Yeah,
they're not able to imagine when they create plans, even right at the
yeah, yeah,
business level, they're
yeah,
not able to organically integrate applications of machine learning into their 3-year plans.
yeah. I think I have a very warped sense of like the level of familiarity with these technologies, because I'm interacting with people every day, all day, with who are
Right.
like, who know, who live, eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, but I imagine you are not doing that. You are dealing with some, like, a lot of people who are like still um, coming to terms
Yeah.
with this stuff.
They're just learning and
Yeah,
they don't know what it can do or cannot do.
yeah,
And so it I think it's going to require a number of years more, to be honest.
yeah,
And it requires them to skill up. And I think the businesses that will survive are the ones that not only get the leaders, but the staff level thinking about applications and aware of what machine learning can do
yeah,
organically.
yeah,
Because unless the end users, and I mean the frontline staff, at least thinking a little bit about what can be done, or what AI is, or in some way, those ideas won't come to the top, because the top
yeah,
people, I mean, at the end of the day, they don't know what's happening really on the ground level.
yeah,
And what I've realized is it always comes down to a process or a step at the ground level that needs
yeah,
to be done in order to make this whole big thing happen, like a
yeah,
ripple effect.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Like I was thinking, like when we talk about AI stuff, like for example, like it's such a high level, dude.
mm,
I'm like, we sit around thinking about like, is just ChatGPT have an understanding of what it's doing? Like, like does it is it conscious? Like that's so far
yes.
in the above like what a day to day like application of a tool is, that it's like sometimes it's like, man, you gotta speak to someone like you or like an engineer to be like, yo, people are still trying to like get this shit to work. It's like it's no one really cares if your program is conscious.
Right.
But man, I wanted to say, like, you are a straight hustler, dude. Like, what's I saw that you were doing a fair or like a event in the UK. Like, what was that about?
Yeah, we were at the HET conference in the for the NHS in the UK. It's basically like a digital healthcare conference, one
Okay,
of a couple they have in the year.
okay,
So what's interesting is, to be honest, I expected a lot more companies focusing on AI,
yeah,
and what I found was that there's still not a lot, and that caught me by surprise.
right,
It's
right,
either that the NHS is somewhere that, I don't know, I couldn't explain it in a very easy
mm,
way.
mm,
I mean, there's components, right? Oh, we use AI to do this or that, but
no,
proper companies who have grown up with a product just focused on AI, not there's application of AI into it,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It is very small. I mean, we were one of probably like two or three in that space, which I was very surprised at, and um, that was the biggest surprise to me.
Like, thing is, like it's really interesting, right? Like, for example, if you took it, if you think of like Netflix,
Mm,
right, or like a tech company. There's so there are a lot of businesses that are actually tech companies
mm,
doing the other things, right?
yes,
Like Netflix is a tech company that does movies and
right.
TV shows and stuff,
Completely agree with that. Yeah.
right? But there doesn't seem to be like a tech company that is also a hospital.
Mm,
It's like it's always a hospital trying to add some tech stuff into their stack.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like there's no like a like a 20 like a a medical system or a hospital that was built first as a tech company, like, with technology principles, with like a very technical person running the thing, like, because it seems difficult to do for a hospital, because like it's
it, it is difficult.
fundamentally a human, like such a there's always like, I get the sense that healthcare somehow gets either it is different than
Mm.
other industries, or it gets treated as if it's different than other industries. I don't understand what the gap is there.
I think it is different in certain ways, but there's also it gets treated differently as well.
Yeah,
People hide behind it as well.
yeah,
That factor where we're treating people versus this. I think there's some truth to that, definitely, absolutely. Um, but I feel like there's if I were to pick one industry that needs innovation to jumpstart it, to leapfrog it, it would be healthcare.
yeah. It's weird, right? I mean,
Um,
like,
yeah.
honestly, I don't buy the whole, oh yeah, we're dealing with human lives here, we need to be sure. I'm like, come on, like, planes use this, like, come on. If it's good
Mm,
enough for a plane that has hundreds of people inside, it's good enough for you, Jesus.
mm.
you know
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the training, right, of the people there. It's
yeah.
like it's slower to move, I
It's
think.
weird. Like, there's this expectation that something like in healthcare has to be so like hands on and grimy, and like it's gotta be like, like nuts and bolts. I don't get it. I mean, at least that's the vibe that I get. Like, I don't
Mm.
know if that's the vibe you get, but like, doesn't
Yes.
matter, bro.
Yeah. No, I was trying to give you a proper answer, and
Yeah, yeah. But okay, but like, what do you? So okay, you work. You're one of the hardest working motherfuckers I've ever. Jesus, I gotta stop swearing on this, because like, because it just happens, and like, sometimes people want to share like what they like this. You want to
yeah,
maybe want to share it like on your thing, right?
yeah.
And like, then there's me just like, oh, I'm so sorry, but I'll have to, because like this is like something I enjoy doing, so I get carried away.
Mhm.
Anyway, you are one of the hardest working people I've ever met in my life.
Thank you.
How are you doing generally, like as a human being? Like, how's everything going?
I think it's honestly it's something that I struggle with in terms of the balance. Um, I think what helps me a lot is my wife. She's probably the if I were to say she's like life versus properly enjoying life.
Yeah,
So I think most recently I've been trying to kind of take it moment and create separations. Because what ends up happening is you start thinking about one problem and it lasts multiple days,
mm.
and you're not really in the moment anywhere in between.
No, I feel you. Trust me. I know exactly how you feel, man.
It's terrible because
It's rough.
it's because you lose the I don't say reality, but you lose that sense of life in every second, and then you don't realize it, but you actually start to become burned out
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
very quickly,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
you don't want to. Your
Yeah,
mind is like,
something that's like, I'm not sure how you manage it, but like, how, like, something that's really helped me. So for example, like right now,
mm,
I have this timer running right on
mm,
my phone, and each and every time I set one of these, like, it's set to a category of thing what I'm of something that I'm doing,
ah,
and I'm only allowed to run one climb at it. Like, the app only lets me run one category of a time at a time,
right,
so I can't run like three different timers at the same time, right?
right, right, right,
So it forces me to do one thing at a time, and
yeah,
then when I'm not doing, and when it's not running, I'm just like, okay, I'm not thinking about this problem, right?
that's a good, yeah,
Otherwise, when I spent, like, I don't know, all day working on this problem, then I go to the gym and I'm still thinking about this problem, right?
right,
I'm having dinner and I'm still thinking about this problem.
right,
I'm trying to go to sleep. This is all I'm thinking about. So now it's like, no, I gotta no, that's it, I'm not done. So like, when I come home and I turn off all my communication and like my thing, I'm
right,
not allowed to deal with this anymore. I have to think about something else, and it actually helps, because it forces you to be more productive. It forces you to like prioritize better, because
mm,
you can't be thinking about this later.
right,
And also, like, a lot of the processing in your brain happens in the background.
mm,
So like, sometimes I'll bang my head against a problem all day, then I'll like go to the gym and I'll forget about it for like 2 hours,
right,
and then like, I'll come back to it like completely fresh. I'm like, oh wait, no, this is completely obvious. Like, what? it seems obvious in the moment, but what's actually happening is I'm not thinking about it, but subconsciously I'm working on
It's
it,
working. Yeah.
and it helps me figure things out, especially after a good night's sleep. Like it's unbelievably helpful.
No, that's a great approach, Dish. I know you're very good at finding those approaches. I remember
Dude, just trying
properly
to
with the extract maximum productivity and so forth.
just trying to, like, I don't know, it's, like recently, like I'm in a place now where like everything I want to do is interesting. So like, okay,
Mhm.
now it's like, okay, I gotta really 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 you know compartmentalize things and, like,
Right.
make sure I like work on one thing at a time. But especially not like jumping, like, because I have so many things going on, and everything I do sort of needs like a good 6 hours of uninterrupted, like, okay,
Thinking.
this thinking, right?
Yeah.
This is what I'm working on now, right?
Right.
So I can't just like be 20 minutes here, 20 minutes here. That shit does not work, because like it
Agreed.
takes like an hour to just to warm up to like the actual problem, like, okay, then like another hour and hour to understand what the methodologies and stuff is, and then
Mm.
try to work on it, iterate, build, and then you're like, okay, I'm done for this day, and then like it's
No.
awesome. Well, it's awesome, but like it leaves a little like, how, like, what do you do other than, like, do you exercise, do you run, like, what do you have anything that keeps you like sort of?
Yeah, running has helped a lot. It's kept me sane. I think it for me. My wife said this as well. My body probably uh, gets more of the good chemicals coming out during
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
exercise,
yeah.
probably more than others. So I really do need to feel it in order for
Oh,
me to feel stable.
I understand for sure. Like,
Mm.
when I'm in the gym, I put my headphones on, like, dude, just bust it out, and
Yeah,
then like I'm just so much happier. Like, okay, okay, it's all good. Like, like,
you feel a
otherwise,
mental difference in a huge way. You
yeah,
really
for
do.
sure. I
Yeah,
mean, we know, like, neurochemically, like there's a lot going on there, and
yeah.
it's like also nice to be around like other people. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. So
like, in the sense that, like, I'm always just shocked, like, because you get trapped in this bubble, right? Even if you're working, like, let's say with work you're doing,
mm,
in the bubble of people around you who are working on this problem with, and then you're completely like disconnected from the actual things that people think about generally. So when I one of my friends has this concept of a reference friend.
huh,
A reference friend is someone, like his definition of a reference friend is someone who's just like an average person,
huh,
who just a normal job, just,
yeah,
just like, just like has a 9 to 5, like is happy, has a
right.
family, like a reference friend, for the reference, for the as a to keep you like sort of like grounded,
Grounded, right?
things that happen in the world. I haven't found that balance yet, but hopefully eventually. Anyway, what are you excited about, like, in the future? I know you're you've been working on the consultancy. Like, what's the roadmap looking like?
I think for me, we found a couple of applications where not a lot of people are in at the moment,
Yeah.
and it still hasn't been solved fully
Mm.
because it's both a data science problem plus an operational
Yeah.
process level problem.
Yeah.
And I feel excited because my background is in process improvement and lean and Six Sigma, and
Yeah.
I'm working with a great technical team on the machine learning front, and I feel like we're in the best position to take advantage of those types of problems, and especially within our space, like
Yeah,
hospitals.
I think definitely. I think you have a better shot than anybody else, because you know what? Because
Mm,
people, you can go talk to hospital administrators and like people, and they take you seriously because they know what you're talking. They know you've been there, you've
right,
done the grunt work, like you've done you've you know how a hospital works,
right.
more or
You speak
less,
their
right?
language, and
Exactly.
then
If I showed up with a fancy new model to predict your like thing, they'd be like, "No, get out of here, man. You have no idea. Like, you don't know anything about this or how it works or like what happens on the ground." But I think you're in a good position to do this.
it's exciting. And I think just when you're running a company, and I have amazing partners that I'm working with, but it's how do you manage all the different aspects of it? How do you keep that passion alive for the problem that you're trying to solve while still having enough cash flow, while having you know marketing? How does marketing going in order to give you enough leads to be able to try some of this stuff out? So there's all these different aspects that you have to balance at the same time in parallel.
Yeah.
And I think
How do you like? What do you have like? Talk to me about it. Like, how do you like? How do you balance? How do you manage all the different little
I've
aspects?
learned, and I think this goes back to some of the rules, is like a mistake that I've done is not hire the highest caliber people
Mm,
in each role way in the beginning.
right.
I think if I did that, we'd be a lot further ahead. And within the past 2 years or so, we've done that. For marketing, we have an amazing person, and her background is in marketing and brand management, and all, like, she's done amazing work. And on the technical front, building a technical team that's um, not just capable but reliable, and they understand the vision that you're trying to create. I think we have that now, and they're trying their best, and they're working through, because I can't always ask the right questions from them, right? Because I'm not coming from that background.
Right. Right. Right.
But if I give them the vision that we're trying to create, or the specific application, or the potential, they're thinking on their own
Mm,
what we could do to, so I think having the right caliber people really helps in a big way. And also, my partners have extensive experience in running other businesses and so forth, so it's helped tremendously to balance out my deficiencies.
right.
um, but I'll tell you something I did learn, though. Some things, man, you just gotta start from the beginning,
Yeah.
and just go. Even if you bring on the right person, there's a lot of learnings, and you have to devote a lot of time. Marketing is something that,
Yeah.
brand new,
Yeah.
and we have to build up from scratch, to generate the number of leads, and branding in the right channels, and what are we targeting, like pricing, like all this stuff, such a big thing. It's been a learning at every single step of the way, and I think we've made probably every mistake to date,
Right.
to be able to even just to get here. So
I mean,
yeah.
dude, I'm constantly like impressed at the fact that like the level of the level of dedication you've put into this. It's
Mm.
like you've tried different countries, like different approaches, like, but you have this idea of what you want to work on, and something that keeps you moving forward. And that's really inspiring. Like, on it's like it's real nice, because, like, I don't know, people like, you're the opposite of a person who just like, I'll pick something up for 2 minutes, like, nah, I'm good, and just like move on. I feel like 90% of people would be like, man, to hell with this healthcare nonsense, I'm done. But like, it's like, whenever I see like the Sach stuff on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh hell yeah, dude, like,
Thank
get
you.
out,
I
get
appreciate
after it,
that support. I really do.
get after it. Yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, like, dude, I'm not gonna take up much more of your time. It's been almost an hour.
Oh,
Um,
thank you,
but
Dish.
like,
Like I said,
dude,
man, I'm so happy to have met you, and I'm so happy
amazing.
you've come on this journey, man. I mean, you're going to do some amazing things. I always knew that, but now you have the technical capability to actually put those things into, form it to make it happen. So I, mean, I think you're in the best place. Can't
Thanks,
wait to
man.
see what you come up with. I really.
Thanks. Time will tell. Well, like, I'm right now, I'm just like, I'm really just like you said, I think like, would you say like part of the reason that you are motivated and keep doing this is like, you do learn, you're constantly learning something new,
Mm,
constantly learning something about the world that you didn't know before. Like, oh, people work this way. Like, is there something that, like, at least for me, it's something that keeps me motivated, because like,
mm,
spend all day thinking about something, and then I'm like, oh wait, and it gives me like a different way of looking at the world, and how the world is built,
right,
how
right.
how to structure my life. And it's kind of interesting. Like, I'll give you a simple example, okay? Like, so like, I like the concept of a neural network is very simple. It's very,
Mm,
very simple. Like, it's just like it's a weighted sum. You take you take a bunch of numbers together, multiply them, add them together, and then do some stuff. Okay, it's very simple.
mm,
But the network, so like, idea behind it, like, for example, I think of this is how I think of my relationships. Okay, like my friends, I think of them in this way. Okay, so if I have a bunch of connections coming into me, right?
mm,
Connections coming to me, I have to decide how much weight I give to the information that's coming to me from each of those nodes.
mm,
Okay, and if uh node's link drops below a certain threshold, I cut that off. Like I'm done, right? But sometimes some people are like way too excitable. They get way too worked up, or like they get. But this
Mm,
like good. It's still good source of information. They're still valuable to me. I just have to raise the bar on how much on how often I get activated by their inputs. Right?
mm,
So like
right. Very interesting.
so this is like the kind of shit that I kind of thing I apply. I think about so at when I'm studying this stuff, and I'm like,
Mm,
because part of what you're studying when you're doing AI is like is why underneath the question of when you study AI is like why are we here? Like why what makes human beings the way they are?
mm,
And that's a lot about how our brain's structured, how we interact with the people around us, how our social networks work, and it makes sense to think of all these AI tools and AI algorithms and structures that we built and think
right.
how does it apply to like the most intelligent thing that we know, which is a human being, and how does it work? So for example, I'm taking a course on AI just for games right now. AI is used in video games,
Right.
and you go and it's basically just like a crash course on the best decision making theories that we have,
Mm,
right? Like these are the best ways we know to make good decisions. And then,
right.
okay, well, this is nothing to do with this, nothing to do with video games or AI. It's like, okay, how can I apply these things to my life? Like, it's like
It's amazing.
super interesting.
Right.
And I have to thank you for this to putting me on this strange. Uh,
A small bit of any influence I have,
trajectory.
I honor the opportunity. Thank you.
No, it's been great. All right, bro, I'm going to let you go. It's been a pleasure. We have to do this soon, but like I know it's hard to get cover you, but we'll catch up again soon for sure.
That'd be great, man.
All right,
Sounds great. Thank you, bitch.
catch up.
Talk to you later. Bye.
This has been a One Deeper podcast. Thanks for joining, and I hope you learned something. Catch you again next time.